Radical Radio Collective.
Good afternoon, listeners. You are tuned into 4ZZZ on 102.1 FM, and this is Eco Radio. Izzy, we're back.
We are back. Welcome back, team.
Yay.
Wait.
Oh, no. There we go.
Solid.
There we go. We've got the on-air DAP going on.
Nice.
But Eco Radio hasn't been on for the past 3 weeks, so we've been on a 3-week hiatus.
Yeah.
That's because we had locked in the Christmas special.
Christmas takeover, yeah.
And then last week we had the 4ZZZ Hot 100 countdown.
Just a small little event in 4ZZZ's history.
Yeah, we got thrown off the air for that. But that's very...
But I think that was worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. And we are still Australia's longest running peace and environment radio show.
Peer-reviewed by us.
Yes, even though we did have a 3-week intermission, we're still around.
We're still the longest running,
yeah,
obviously.
Exactly. My name is Zack, and my pronouns are he, they, and I'm joined by...
Izzy.
Hello.
She, they.
And I want to start off by acknowledging and paying my respects to the custodians of the country on which we broadcast. We are located in the city Magangin on Turrbal Yuggera Urupu land. I also want to acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening in today. Our radio waves reach Kabi Kabi and Jinnabara country in the north, Waka Waka country in the east, in the west... Waka Waka country in the west, apologies. In the east, we pay our respects to the Quandamooka people, and down south, we reach Common-Berry, Ngaragwal, Mununjali, Wandjirabara, and Yugonbeh countries. There is no Crown land. How was your Christmas, Izzy?
I think it was... I would say it was long. It was definitely the first Christmas I spent with my partner.
Cute.
So that's the first ever time I haven't had Christmas with my family. And it's one of those weird moments where it's like you feel like an adult.
Yeah.
But you're doing Christmas things. So it's like, I don't know. It was a nice change of pace. But I am a retail employee.
Yeah.
So that meant doing midnight trading at a certain Westfield. And it was long and it was hard. And I am very excited to not ever be awake at that time and at work. So I think very well-deserved break. But how was yours?
It was all right. I work at Tomcats.
So the firebombing?
It got fired. So the tobacco store underneath Tomcats got firebombed at 3:30 on Boxing Day morning. So I haven't had to work for the last couple Saturdays. I only work there on Saturdays, what it's worth. But that was nice. I mean, I got a bit of an extended break, I guess.
That was crazy seeing that. Not only seeing the video pop up on most news feeds, but then seeing the Tomcat statement afterwards, which was just so depressing to read, especially as most of us were kind of away from Fortitude Valley and its nightclubs to still see some piece of iconic like clubbing. And there's history. A fair amount of bands that I know can't play there. They had like a fair few lineups. I was scheduled to work New Year's Eve, and we had like bands scheduled to play that day. Can't do that, and it's going to be closed until the end of January. That's crazy. And especially having worked in food service, New Year's Eve is the biggest night for nighttime venues. Obviously because of fireworks and things like people celebrating the New Year. So having a loss of business is huge. So definitely thinking about obviously you as an employee getting your hours cut, but also like local venues as well. But what are we talking about besides that? What are we talking about in Eco Radio? Today we're going to be going over some of the news that's happened in the past 3 weeks. We'll try and catch people up on everything, I guess. So that includes the approval of 4 new coal mines by Tanya Plibersek. That was on the 19th of December. I don't think it's coincidental that was announced just a couple days before Christmas when then I also wanted to touch upon a David Crisafulli interview that he did with 7:30 on the ABC last night, and I also wanted to touch upon an article that Dr. Maren Zaluki, who used to be one of my lecturers, talking about monarch butterfly populations in Australia, and I believe you had something for us today as well, Izzy? I did. I have a scientific article about the cost of recovering Australia's threatened species, which 2 of the researchers are UQ researchers, so quite a local focus, but really interesting, breaking down what what obviously the finance is, but also what parts are dedicated to which sectors of our, I guess, threatened species.
So, you're telling me subscribing to 4ZZZ didn't give you enough warm inner glow? Here's the thing, you could be like Ian. Ian subscribed to his business and chucked a $50 donation on top of that. Be an Ian and head to 4zzz.org.au to subscribe and donate today. Sounds like a good plan to me.
What are we getting into is my question.
So we're going to be talking about some of the new mines that Tanya Plibersek approved on the 19th of December last year. So there's one of them in New South Wales and 3 of them in Queensland. 3 of those in Queensland will be located at Caval Ridge Horse Pit, Lake Vermont Meadowbrook and the Vulcan South. But as the Queensland Conservation Council pointed out, the owners of the Vulcan South coal mine are currently under investigation over an alleged violation of the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation EPBC Act. The allegation is supposedly for clearing 47 hectares, not acres, of land that is considered koala habitat without approval, and the penalties for this is either 7 years in prison or $657,000 in fines.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. Do we know what these mines will be like?
Used
Do we
for?
know what used for? Yeah. Do we know what type of exports will be coming out of them?
So most of them is going to be coal-related for using, and this coal is going to be used in the production of steel, but some of it will be used in energy generations overseas, although the Australian companies must still abide by the 2050 net zero targets. It is worth noting, though, that they must abide by Australia's net zero targets, and the coal burnt overseas will not contribute to these targets, so still profiting.
Dog. That is so fishy, and just like the fact that it doesn't contribute to Australia's emissions targets when it's burnt overseas, yet we are still supplying it, is still... I'm not very good at maths, but if 2 + 2 = 4, this isn't... I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
And I think doing it so pointedly towards like December, where a lot of people are either distracted or aren't looking, is so... Yeah. It leaves a nasty feeling.
Especially when we consider that this company, the owner of Vulcan South, is clearing koala habitat, which is something that we've discussed several times on the program before, that habitat destruction and degradation of it is like the most significant thing facing koalas at the moment, our little guys. It's, again, seems very odd to, again, approve another mine that potentially will result in the same. Yeah,
and I think it's also worth pointing out, Tanya Plibersek posted as well this sort of like greenwashing. A lot of her stuff on socials is obviously a lot of greenwashing within regards to, it's for creating better jobs. It is for she stated that Labor had approved 0 coal mines in 2024, which everyone in the comments is ripping her apart for, and saying, look, what a difference a decade makes as she approves these 4 coal mines. So I do want to point out, whilst this is very negative news, there are many things that you can do, whether it's joining organisations like Move Beyond Coal or the, I believe, 350 movement. They are 2 people that I initially got emails about, because I'm subscribed to them, about this coal mine. So I knew it was coming because they're on top of this type of stuff. So even if you can't volunteer or engage, you can still be in the know about it.
Yeah.
So 350 or Move Beyond Coal are both Australian-based environmental groups that can definitely help.
I suppose we're speaking on a bit of the energy debate at the moment. David Crisafulli gave an interview on ABC's 7:30 last night. So we're going to have a quick chat about what he said during that. So first and foremost, he welcomes the federal government agreeing to fund $7.2 billion of a $9 billion upgrade to the Bruce Highway. So I think last year the federal government wanted, or at least proposed, making the split 50-50 federal and state funding for that highway. And now they've agreed to go to that 80-20 split. But the main reason I wanted to bring up this interview is when he was asked by the host why he did not support the federal coalition's nuclear policy, he said that his party does have an energy plan but didn't really give any further details, then sort of immediately deflected it into talking about the childish discourse around the energy debate at a national level. So if you remember last year, there were members of the Australian Labor Party that posted things such as a three-eyed blinky bill in front of a nuclear power station. So that's kind of like the thing that he's talking about there. But then the host asked again onto specifics as why he did not agree to the nuclear power plan, whether it was cost, environmental concerns, etc. Again, he just didn't answer the question and says Queensland has the youngest fleet of coal-fired power stations, which other states don't have, and they haven't been operational for about 3 years now, and he plans on getting those operating at full capacity, which, as we just discussed earlier with the new coal mines opening, thumbs down emoji. He didn't comment on the cost of the getting those the coal pipe off.
Of course not.
Yeah. And he says that nuclear power is a Canberra debate. So
Delightful.
He's kind of just taken his hands off of it and said it's up to other people. But again, odd that he didn't answer the question at all when prior to the Queensland election he came out and saying that he did not support the nuclear coalition, the federal coalition's nuclear power plans. Naughty.
Yeah, it doesn't bring a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
In his leadership if he can't even answer simple questions. So I think this is definitely something to keep an eye on, especially anything related to, I know nuclear power was a big topic that we discussed last year.
Yeah.
That was what a morning for news, as Peter Dutton's doing that press conference and new figures are just getting dropped.
Yeah.
Because I think I was here trying to write a story for Eco, and everything was just kind of updating as we went to air. But I can't wait for nuclear to no longer be a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Because as many people, including, as mentioned earlier, the Queensland Conservation Council, I believe, said that a lot of environmental groups have said it's kicking the same can down the road. And if we were to do it effectively, we should have done it 20 years ago. So,
I'm kind of interested in doing some kind of energy episode in the future, just because I think it would be worth going through how nuclear power actually works, how it generates, and then also like the costs associated with that, because I don't know particularly much about how any of that works. And then I'd also be keen to get something regarding renewables and how that compares and contrasts there.
Yeah, if this is something that interests you and something that you want to throw your 2 cents in, our text line is 0420 626 733 if you want to shoot us a line. If you're interested in us doing a deep dive on energy, because we've just spoken about coal mines, we've talked, steel mines, we've talked about nuclear. If that's something you would like us to do a deep dive in, let us know. We're always open to new content on Eco.
Want your band or brand to stick? Minuteman Press Fortitude Valley make awesome die-cut vinyl stickers and magnets. Maybe you need beautiful business cards, signage, call flutes, or promotional merch like pens, posters, and postcards. The team at Minuteman Press Fortitude Valley can turn your design dreams into reality. Independently owned and operated since 2015, check out their range of services at minutemanpress.com.au. Proud sponsor of 4ZZZ.
You should come out of hibernation and you should think about subscribing to 4ZZZ.
That was smooth.
Thank you. I've been watching Behind the Bastards, the podcast, listening to, I should say, the podcast, and I like the the awkward transitions to things.
Transitions. Love it.
But yeah, you should think about subscribing to 4ZZZ. We are a community-run radio station. We do this for fun, more or less. This is run by people who, for the most part, do not get paid. There's only, I think, five or six full-time, like not even full-time,
Part-time.
5 or 6 people employed here, and we all do this because we like the community and like you guys being aware of things that are going on in the community. I think it costs about $70 an hour for us to keep the lights on in the studio, so if you want to think about supporting that, you can head over to 4ZZZ.org.au/support.
New year, new you, baby. Support community radio. On our website, there's different tiers for different folks. And whilst you're there, grab yourself some merch as well. If you want to, support community radio. It doesn't, not only do you help keep the lights on, but you also help us help you through our sub outlets and being in the know about the wider community. So if that sounds appealing to you, 4ZZZ.org.au/support. I also believe that you can give us a ring at reception now that we're open back in our office hours. So if you want to talk to a human being, you can do that. But if you don't want to talk to anyone, that's fine as well. Yeah, and there's also a subscriber prize for this month. Ooh. So it is a Suitcase Showcase vinyl pack, courtesy of the lovely folks at Suitcase Records. Love them. So if you want a chance to potentially win that, you should think about subscribing. So go in the running for that. We've been doing these little monthly giveaways, little prize packages for our subscribers, and I hope that keeps coming in the new year because they are a really great way of showcasing local businesses who support Zed, and as a result, Zed supports them. So if it is in your interest to get more gigs, get more local, get more warm in a glow, then subscribe. We also got a text in from Marky, our friendly bush regenerator, and he says, "Hey, Zack and Issy, Marky here. So nice to hear you guys back again. It's good to hear from you too, Marky. But where is that Dave, man? Dave is hanging out. He's doing painting. He's living the life, probably sipping some fine martinis or something like that on a lawn chair." Marky says he's at Karawatha Forest today, hand weeding large lantana and hanging them to dry in the swamp mahogany trees, and trying his best to avoid the odd fire ants nest. But yes, it's hot right now, and hearing the teens having fun jumping into the quarry is a bit of a tease. So his request today is Ugly Duckling by Endless Summer. We'll have that one off you in about 10 minutes, I reckon, Marky. But at the moment, we're going to jump into talking about some monarch butterflies. So there was an article written by Dr. Maren Zaluki, who was one of my former lecturers at UQ. I don't know if he would remember me or not, but Izzy and I have a mutual friend that he was his honours supervisor. So shout outs to Louis and his bestie Maren. So we've seen in North America that monarch butterfly populations have been rapidly decreasing for quite some time. This is pretty well documented, and it appears to be doing the same here in Australia as well. And this is a little bit concerning, as although they're not native, they are arguably the most iconic butterfly species. I think when I picture of a butterfly, that's the first thing that comes in my mind. For a lot of people, it would be the same. So that is a bit of a shame that they are starting to decrease in population and sizes and whatnot. But I first want to jump into talking about them as a non-native butterfly and how their host plant, the milkweed, is also non-native. So monarch butterflies require milkweed as like a host plant, so they literally cannot live without them. The adult butterflies will taste for and will only lay eggs on top of milkweed so that the caterpillars can eat it. And so these caterpillars are interesting as well, as the milkweed is poisonous, but they have evolved to be able to eat it, and they actually incorporate the poison of the milkweed into their own natural defense system, which is pretty cool. That's really cool. Yeah, so there was a study done by the UC Boulder that showed that birds vomit violently after eating monarchs and will not eat them again. So it's very much a good, way to perturb
perturb. It's one of those I can never remember. Predators away. So
Deter?
Yeah. Something
good
along
defense
those lines.
mechanism.
Good defense mechanism to have. So, as I just discussed, it's a host plant. So, therefore, monarchs can only inhabit where milkweed occurs. So, how did monarchs and milkweed arrive in Australia? So, as most good things, not good things, as most bad things, it's because of colonization. That's very
Interesting,
bad.
Zach.
Yes. So there was a spread of milkweed to Pacific Islands, and these must have predated that of the monarchs. I think the first records for them occurred in 1860. That is the plants. But then with the monarchs, you're able to see the slow, I guess, expansion from their native North America. They were then first found in Hawaii in 1840, then followed in Tonga by 1863, New Caledonia then after that, and then there were multiple sightings recorded in Australia in 1870. And because there were multiple sightings at the same time, it suggests that the butterfly was already pretty established at that point rather than it just being a one-off. But how they got here, it's hypothesized that storms blew them here. So
Really?
I like the idea that monarchs were able to transfer across like half the Pacific Ocean on the back of a single cyclone.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so that's a long way to travel, it's pretty cool. So at least to me, this would suggest that happened even prior to the introduction of milkweed, but it was only noticed once the milkweed was established, because then they could actually survive.
Yep.
Yeah. So although monarchs were not spread because of people, technically they were spread by the storm, they wouldn't exist here without people. So as I was doing research on this, because I found it interesting that, well, I already knew that monarchs were non-native, but then I was curious, as an invasive species technically, how do they impact Australian wildlife? So there was another article that Dr. Zaluki commented on with the ABC back in 2015, and he suspects there's pretty minimal nectar competition with that of native butterflies and other flying insects. And regarding their poison assets, I guess, they've sort of had like a similar effect to that of the cane toad, but less potent. Most native birds have learned not to eat them because monarch butterflies have pretty striking coloration, and once they see that again, they know not to eat it because they got icky and gross. Like me just after Christmas, where I ate a lot of cheesecake and then I got gastro, and I've tried to eat cheese.
You really just shoehorned that in.
I tried to eat cheesecake since then.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been the same. It's been all wrong. But there are some native birds that have actually been able to ignore the poison, I suppose. That being the pied currawong and black-faced cuckoo shrike, which is a very unfortunate name. Which is it's pretty cool that they've been able to overcome those poisons in some regard. So the monarchs have also adapted to Australian conditions. In North America, the monarchs migrate from Mexico to Southern California each year, and that's a pretty remarkable migration. But in Australia, they overwinter at certain sites. So that is essentially where they all come together, they sit on a specific plant, and then they just hang out there for over the winter.
Nice.
So there was this entomologist called Courtney Smithers, and they developed a thing called the Mark Recapture Program, which is essentially where they attach an identifying tag to the wing, they note the condition, they note things such as the date and the location, and then if that individual were to be recaptured in a couple of days, couple of months, whatever, provided it's still alive, they are then able to share information on things such as their ecology, population size, migration, etc. This program was discontinued a few years ago, though, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a decrease in population of monarch butterflies in Australia and New Zealand. We're not really too sure why at the moment. It could be because of climate change, it could be because of land clearing, urbanisation, an increase in agriculture, but what we need is long-term data, so potentially the place to start would be to start up this mark and recapture and reporting program again with the help of citizen science to find out what is happening to Australia's monarchs. Because I kind of discussed, even though they are not native, they don't seem to be having like huge negative impacts on the Australian environment. So
this is a bit of a side note, but they're looking them up. I realized that this is very off topic, but the emoji for butterfly on most Android is a monarch. Which I looked it up and I was like, this is familiar. So I know in the past there's been, I think we spoke about a scientific paper about the types of animals that are used in emojis and the correlation to their their endangerment. And found that for some of them, because of the introduction of the emoji, that specific emoji, there's more people are aware of it. Meanwhile, for others, it hasn't changed or it's actually gone backwards. And I think the monarch was an example of that. And this honestly seems like a perfect iNaturalist kind of like throw to be like, if you do see a monarch, take a photo of it.
I want to see him.
Send him across. Thanks for that, Zach. That was really interesting, especially and now I just have a mental image of a tornado of monarchs coming to
that's a very menacing a sequel to Sharknado. It's Monarchnado.
Love it. Now I am going to jump into a little bit of finance. I will say. I'm going to try and find this UQ article that I just pulled up. I can't find it, but a scientific article was released in Nature, Ecology and Evolution in 2024 about the cost of recovering Australia's threatened species. The two of the researchers were from UQ, that is April Reside and James Watson as well. They both discussed looking at estimating the cost of nationally listed terrestrial and freshwater threatened species. Their sample size was about 1,657 across the continent of Australia, combining explicit costs of strategies required to address species-specific threats. There were 12 strategies, and overall they estimated $583 billion per year of the implementing all of the strategies to recover threatened species in their habitats, with the management of invasive species, and this blew my mind, making up 81% of that total cost. So if you're not keeping up with Australia's GDP, that is about 25% of it. That is huge. This figure doesn't represent a realistic biodiversity conservative budget, because as we know, we do talk a lot about conservation, and one of the biggest factors is A, understaffed, and B, underfunded. So I don't know where anyone can find $583 billion to take care of our invasive species, our threatened species, sorry.
Mr. Bezos, if you're listening to this, hit us up.
Mr. Musk.
I don't want to talk to him.
No. But it is quite scary as a figure. But it also is something that needs to be accounted, weighing up decisions. So I could not work in the financial environmental sector because having to choose between programs to fund would keep me up at night.
It's very depressing. It
is incredibly depressing. But it was really interesting to hear that figure, and commenting on through the UQ media press, Dr. April Reside said that stopping Australia's extinction crisis is critical, as the plight of threatened species is indicative of broader ecosystem problems. They went on to say there are many interventions that can be achieved to provide far-reaching benefits beyond threatened species, such as restoring traditional fire regimes, managing invasive species, and restoring and protecting habitats. So whilst the study looked at individual kind of restorative measures, there are some wider sweeping measures that we can implement that can assist. Additionally, research co-author Professor James Watson said agriculture can also benefit from such an investment as well. Furthermore, saying that we should be reducing the economic impact of pests and weeds, which cost the sector billions of dollars annually.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're looking at that digit and going far out, how can we fix that? it may be simpler, but it may be much more widescape than we think. But 81% for invasive weeds is crazy. Walking through my local neighborhood, do you know that invasive plant, that it's the purple one? That large purple flower, I don't remember the name of it, but I do remember it was invasive. People just having bushes of that. And I get they're beautiful, but also...
Not the bougainvillea?
I think it is the bougainvillea.
Okay.
And just being like, why would you put that in your...
That's a bit of an ornamental plant, isn't it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like, why would you put that in your garden? It's, I don't know. That was completely off the cuff, but... Professor Watson also brings up a really good point about threat abatement strategies generate many thousands of jobs, particularly in rural and Indigenous communities, fostering economic resilience and social equity. So this may be something that is a little bit more circular, so investing and then receiving back in the form of jobs, in the form of slow restoration as well. So I think it's really interesting to see these numbers and break it down as well. And hopefully this can bring some much more realistic discussions about implementing these, protecting Australia's threatened species, but also potentially generating some more funding options, or maybe a little bit of a stark reminder that this is quite a large problem. So yeah, that's my news.
Everyone loves koalas. Dogs are a man's best friend, and there's lots you can do ensuring that your pal doesn't harm koalas. If you're lucky enough living amongst koalas, follow these simple tips and you and Doggo and the local koalas will live happily ever after. Most dog attacks on koalas take place in the dog's own backyard, as dogs are curious by nature and they'll check out the koala. Even a quick dog bite is enough to kill a koala, as they have thin skin. These attacks usually happen at night, when koalas are more active, as well as between July and September. That's the time when adult koalas are out and looking for mates, and the young koalas are looking for their own territories. The likelihood of a koala attack increases if there are 2 or more dogs on the property, and if the dog weighs over 10 kilograms, so choose a small dog if possible. Please keep your dog inside at night, or tether your dog so their movements are limited from direct routes between trees, or install koala exclusion fencing. And give Doggo a bone so they don't get bored, and exercise your dog regularly so it lacks energy to chase wildlife. 4ZZZ cares about our community.
You're listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future.
You are listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future. Thank you, small child. That was pretty good. We had one prior to the break. That was much better. That was much better. But then we also had one that was much worse than that. So very middle of the road for us today. We got a text in from Celeste who says nuclear power is not green power. It generates thousands of tons of radioactive waste that has to be stored. The US are struggling to store their nuclear waste as the hundreds of thousands of steel containers are disintegrating and waste is leaking out. There has been no mention from the opposition leader that nuclear is not green but generates toxic nuclear waste that does not break down and has to be stored for thousands of years. Has storing the waste been factored in the opposition nuclear figures? Nope. If you're interested, look at the history of 1970s nuclear power protests here in Australia to stop this industry from coming into our country. I have attached an article, The Dilemma US Face of Storing Nuclear Waste, a great discussion.
Thanks for that, Celeste. I think it's those opinions that I really love hearing, and I knew about the nuclear waste. I didn't know about the US situation though, so thank you for enlightening us on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of action, Zach, shall we get into the Bushcare Roundup?
I do want to add one thing that Marky also texted in.
Oh, yes.
He says that bougainvillea is so bad on the sand dunes in Bribie Island, sadly invasive due to homeowners throwing their clippings into the dunes, but it just so happens that bougainvillea loves sand.
Yeah.
Thumbs down for bougainvilleas. Bougainvillea's out for 202025. I'm calling it now.
Is. And thank you for your suggestion, Marky, as well.
Yeah.
That was an absolute banger, and it is in both of our personal playlists now as well. So thank you for that.
And it does also feel like a bit of an endless summer sometimes. It's very hot.
It does, yes.
But we also got another text in that says, artists inspired by the plight of the Monarch Butterfly. Cheerio, Celeste. I'm going to click on the link right now to find out about that one. Oops, I got to click it like that. My bad.
Bro, shall we do...
We'll put the Bushcare Roundup first, and then we can go into it.
Thank you.
It's a Bushcare Roundup. They've been pulling out weeds, and then they put in trees. It's the Bushcare Roundup.
I'll do that whilst you're doing your article, Zach. On Thursday the 9th at 6 o'clock, there is the Biosecurity Awareness Workshop at 3 High Street in Boonah. On Saturday the 11th at 7, there is the Mookin-Bah, Working Bee at 106 Greencamp Road in Wakerley. On Sunday the 12th, from 6, there is the Taringa Community Garden Bee at 9 Heroes Avenue in Toowong. At 8, there is the Logan Pest Fishing Cup at JJ Smith Park in Marsden. At 11, there is the Forest Family Sundays, THECA,
yeah.
Sorry, at 47 Fleming Road, Chapel Hill. I'll let you take us over to Tuesday.
On Tuesday the 14th from 3 till 4 p.m. there is a sea slug survey in the Rocky Shores. That one is back for the year, and that one is John Laws Park, Burleigh Heads. On Wednesday the 15th from 9:15 till 10:15 we have the Naturally GC Kids Sea Creatures. That one is at Labrador. From 9:30 till 10:30 there is the Naturally GC Kids Scaly Reptiles, and that one is at Robina. And then from 11 till 12:30 a.m. we have a thing called Bee Green, and that one is at 151 Elizabeth Street, Brisbane City. That'll talk about native bees. You'll be able to make a bee hotel there, that sort of thing.
That is cool. What the heck?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I believe the artist inspired by the Monarch Butterfly that Celeste recommended, that one is at QA Goma.
Nice.
Yeah. So head along to that if you want to have a look at 30,000 butterflies.
That's really cool. And Zach, you had one more thing to share with us before we depart the show, didn't you? It was a little bit of a nicer news story.
Yes, that's right. So there is some dredging. Dredging is usually pretty bad, but some of the dredging work that's done in the Swansea Channel in Lake Macquarie, which I believe is near Newcastle, it created the perfect habitat for the endangered little tern. So the little tern can be found from northern Queensland right down the east coast, and they're endangered. But now there are 50 adult little terns nesting there, and so there's going to be a bunch of little terns hanging around there.
That is really nice to hear.
Very cute.
Yeah, what I would think informative news, a little bit depressing news. It is nice to see nature obviously coming back and restoring itself, even after the worst of man-made
horrors beyond our comprehension. No, it's very comprehensible actually. But that's it for Eco Radio today.
That is. Thank you, Zach, for all the music choices and for all your news pieces as well. I'm very excited to be back. I'm excited to be back in the studio with you, my friends. Thank you for all the people who texted in. And just remember, if you do want to subscribe, 4ZZZ.org.au/support.